corn. We eventually made it to Kings Island around 8:30 p.m. You would think that would be useless time, but this is Kings Island, and the ops know how to go. We headed in and went straight for it. Headed straight for Banshee. I personally have this over Raptor as my favorite invert in Ohio, and overall. What's not to love? Minus that Kings Island B&M rattle, which was more noticeable on my second ride the next day. We got a ride at dusk/night, and everything on Banshee was the way it was supposed to be. Hang time on the 0G, long, winding, twisting layout, solid positives, flying through its layout because it's nighttime and this ride warmed up. After this, I can firmly say this is my favorite B&M invert I've been on. We can debate this again when I inevitably get to Busch Gardens Tampa and ride Montu. Until then, this is what I say. This is how it stands. From there, we took the hike over to the back. Please, Kings Island. Please, Six Flags maintenance. Keep every part you have from the Aero suspended coasters. And if you only can choose two to survive, Vortex at Canada's Wonderland and this. Please. My one little ask. Preserve this thing for generations because this ride is amazing. Slow lift hill that builds up the tension and the excitement. A gut punch for those who underestimate the whip on this ride and just how it crushes through its layout, sweeping through diving turns, banking you sideways, left and right. This is a sleeper hit in my opinion, and probably the number 2 Aero suspended coaster ever made, only behind Vortex at Canada's Wonderland, which shares a very similar layout, but is a little bit taller and a little bit faster. Such a great ride. After that, we headed towards Orion as I have had 3 prior rides on this ride, 2 in the morning and 1 at night. And of those 3, the night ride was the best. So, in my mind, my brain had thought, this ride needs to warm up, it's a night ride. So, that was part of the reason we did this. But along the way, we decided to hit Adventure Express. I have done this all of twice and have slept on this ride. This is one of the more intense aero mine trains out there, as it starts high on the ground and just relentlessly keeps twisting, turning, and dropping you and going down that hillside all the way to the bottom. Add in that fantastic theming they added last year with the renovations to this area, and that fake out ending. It's a great family ride at Kings Island with a little extra punch. I love the way they put this extra theming in and having it all work. It does add to the ride. Cannot underestimate and understate how good much theming can improve a ride. From there, we hit Orion. I've had 4 very distinct rides on this. However, 2 of them were in the daytime, 2 of them were at night. And this is by far a coaster that needs to warm up to be at its peak. This time, it was the best by far. Front row, full train, full potential. If this thing ran like this all the time, it could be a contender for one of the best Gigas. But because it doesn't, I cannot say that. I will put myself on the hill that this is the best Giga in Ohio. Speed. Whip on the elements when it's running at its peak. Airtime. It's a fun ride, albeit inconsistent when you ride in the daytime. If it's not, you certainly can say Millennium is better. Of the North American Gigas, the first and last ones, being the ones in Ohio, are at the bottom of the pack in my opinion. Canada, Carolinas, and Virginia all do them better. With that, it's nighttime, and there's a rite of passage that has to be done. So, at about 9:50ish, we got in line for that legendary night ride on The Beast. I purposely made this a night ride for my friend, as it's a rite of passage. The dark unknown as you race through the woods is an incredible feeling. Add in a long 4-minute plus ride, and there's a reason we all flock for a night ride on this legendary Woody. I was nervous about the helix at the end, that it would be too much for me, but they were fine. That pre-cut track, making them so much better. Thank you, Gravity Group. Daytime rides are great, which we would get one more the next day, but overall, The Beast is a night ride of choice. Every time. From there, it was time to get a late night snack, and then hit our hotel for the night before we would return the next morning to get the rest of the credits for him and the rest of the park. We decided to take our time in the morning before heading over to Kings Island at like 10:30, 11. We started the day with 3 rides on Banshee and the back. Both weren't as crazy good as they were the night before, which I would say is because they warmed up. As for Banshee, the rattle was a bit more noticeable on the morning ride. After that, we attempted the drop tower, but the restraints just weren't working for us. And then my buddy went to go ride in Vertigo, the park's inverted boomerang. I debated riding with him, but knowing the next day we were going to Six Flags St. Louis, and how much more rougher rides I was going to run into, I wanted to give my body a better shot with those rough rides the next day. So, I watched him go, and I slightly honestly regretted a little bit, knowing I may not have another shot to ride it, but I did ride it the year prior. From that, we ran to Coney Mall to take a lap on the Racer. I enjoy a good racing coaster, like Thunder rode at Carowinds. I thought this was good. What the Gravity Group has done to keep this thing going. It's got a nice long life ahead of it. It's the icon of Kings Island. Well, one of many. It's got solid airtime throughout its layout. Add in the racing aspect that always gives you a reason to go back, because you can always go, hey, we're going to beat you, split your family up, see which one's better. You always have a good thrill, and it's a perfect intermediate way to introduce, to warm someone up before going to like Mystic Timbers or the Beast. After that, I'm a sucker for a Windseeker, so we ended up going on Windseeker because why not? Then we headed to the newly renamed Queen City Stunt Coaster, formerly known as Backlot Stunt Coaster, and formerly known before that as the Italian Job Stunt Track. It's been a while since I rode this family launch. Add in theming, and as we discussed earlier, I'm a sucker for theming. I like how they decided though to make it more close to home with that Cincinnati flair. Definitely makes it better. So Toronto, Canada, you want to do a little something to yours? Because, you guys could do that. It's a good filler. Also, don't sleep. Felix is a lot more intense than I remember, but it is a family coaster, so there are crazier. After that, it was time for that daytime ride on the Beast, which was just as good as the nights, but there's something about those night rides. At that point, I needed a pick-me-up, so it was time for one of the very rare food purchases in the parks on this trip. I got the pulled pork fries from the Rivertown Potato Works, and they were excellent, just what I needed, and some water too, because it was a hot day. After that, it was time for my favorite ride in all of Kings Island, Mystic Timbers. This is my favorite coaster in this park, and I don't know why, if I'm being honest. The first time I rode it, I went in with zero expectations and was absolutely blown away by this ride, and every time since, I get that same feeling. It's one of the few rides at Kings Island I can say still does that. This high-speed ride racing through the woods with ejector airtime throughout is a fun ride for anyone who gets a chance to ride this thing. Plus, the mystique of what's in the shed. Although, they could use a fan in there or some air conditioning. I can't honestly tell you which makes this my favorite in the park besides being a fun ride. We walked next door for the last of the big coasters for the day, Diamondback. I love a good hyper coaster. I do thoroughly enjoy Diamondback, but this time around, I felt disappointed after it. For one, the ops kept stacking the ride, which just isn't like them at this park. Time said 25 minutes, but by the time we get on it, I'm sure it was closer to 45. But ops aside, it's well known that Kings Island B&Ms always have a weird little rattle, which normally wouldn't kill a ride, but for some reason on this trip, it was insanely noticeable. Not unbearable by any means, noticeable enough to make it less enjoyable than it should have been. Still has great floater airtime and a good layout, just something was off about the ride this time. After that, my buddy went for a re-ride on Mystic Timbers. I debated joining him, but I needed to cool down and recoup. One thing I've learned on this trip about myself is I just can't run that crazy marathon anymore. I need to change the pace and slow it down every now and again, which honestly might be for the better. Then it came time to do that shameful, unless you're a coaster enthusiast, run into Planet Snoopy for the kitty credits. I needed this to get park completion. So, we started with Woodstock's Air Rail. Yes, I needed the park completion on this trip, and I have no shame. So yes, I got all of the coasters in Planet Snoopy in one swoop. This Vekoma Hang and Bang, or Kids Family Invert? Kids Invert? Whatever it is. Whatever the real name is. Looks good all things considered paint-wise with its new paint job. I can see why, if you're not a seasoned rider or tall enough where your head isn't next to the darn restraints, this could be a pain. Some new age trains with a lap bar, though, would make this 10 times better. But pain issues aside, it was a fun family ride. After that, it was time for the park's newest coaster and one of the 2 Vekoma family boomerangs in the United States. Snoopy's Soapbox Racers, the park's newest coaster. I really wanted to ride this last year on my visit, but no one in my group let me near it. Probably for the best. This time around, I got to it. Have I mentioned how amazing the new age Vekomas are and how I want more of these? Six Flags, Cedar Fair, whatever you want to call yourselves. Please put one of these at Worlds of Fun. This is smooth, has a few small pops of airtime, it has a fun layout with some decent theming and force for a family coaster, and the backward section just enhances the ride for us adults. And those who are just a bit too short for the bigger coasters. After that, it was time to do what we coaster enthusiasts have no shame for doing. Riding the smallest coaster in the park just for the credit. Off to the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. The Great Pumpkin Coaster. Yes, I have no shame, and I needed the credit. I even was asking the operator how often adults and enthusiasts come over to ride it, and they said this is a regularity. So I didn't feel as bad. Fun little kiddie ride, surprising bit of whipping laterals, and some small little ejector pops. You know, those E&F milers, for being kids coasters, they are not as tame as they look. I will just leave it at that, and I've done a couple of these before. My buddy had a heyday making fun of me for riding of it, and my daughter loves the little video that I'm playing right now, because she calls me so silly for going on that.
I unfortunately associate with him.
But then it was time for the last coaster I needed in the park, and one of the originals, the Woodstock Express. Fitting, park completion on a park original. The mini Woodies with just a buzz bar are quite enjoyable. It can give you a few moments of surprise airtime and some laterals because there's little to no banking on it, even to a seasoned coaster rider. Fun, perfect Woody to introduce kids to that kind of a ride. Afterwards, my buddy and I decided to split up and do different things. He wanted to hit Flight of Fear and Invertigo one more time. I chose to slow it down and do some shopping in Planet Snoopy for my daughter, and on International Street for myself. But I did do a few other rides. I'm a sucker for a good shooting ride, so I went on Boo Blasters for the first time in a long time. And while fun, I did think it was a little bit rather too dark for a kid's ride. I get it with the Scooby-Doo theming, it might have been a little bit more lighter, but it could have been better. What's funny is when I wrote this script, I was talking about doing a re-theme, but I would have never guessed, now recording this 6 months later, that I was writing it essentially for the last time as Boo Blasters, and that it would be getting a re-theme to the Phantom Theater this year. So I'm not even going to go off the original bit of the script, and I'm just going to say I'm excited to see how this re-theme is versus that, but I'm glad I decided to go on it one more time and not even realize it was going to be the last time. Still, I do enjoy any kind of shooter, so I'm excited. This is Kings Island, and everybody knows if you want to get a good shot of anything in that park, the best place to do it is at the top of the Eiffel Tower. So I decided to do just that. I love seeing the views of a park, and it's like standing up there and watching a miniature almost, so I get a thrill out of that. But it was also a great spot to get some of these shots you see of the coasters that are used in this video. Afterwards, him and I regrouped, and it was time to do our longest stretch of travel to St. Louis, but we did stop in Indianapolis for a great chicken parmesan dinner at the old spaghetti factory, and a couple of side stops, past the Brickyard, and some roadside shenanigans. Overall, a solid bit of parks and a lot of great rides to start this road trip. To me, Kings Island will always be the best, in my opinion, of the legacy Cedar Fair parks, and still one of the best if not the best in the Six Flags chain. Cedar's great, but when you add the whole package of just a park, ignoring the resort aspect and the coaster collection that keeps Cedar Point in a league of its own, Kings Island has it all. great theming, world-class coasters and attractions, delicious food offerings, and some of, if not the best and most consistent theme park operations I've ever seen. And that does beat Disney and Universal, by the way. Yes, it doesn't have an answer to Siren's Curse, Top Thrill 2, Steel Vengeance, or Maverick. But when you pair the rest with their counterparts, Banshee's better than Raptor. Orion is better and does more than Millennium Force. Diamondback is better and less of a debate as to being a good coaster compared to Magnum. Adventure Express is more thrilling than the Cedar Creek Mine Run. The Bat extinguishes Iron Dragon. Kings Island's family kids rides and coasters are more rounded than Cedar Point's 2. And this one's an easy one. Any of Kings Island's wooden coasters demolish Blue Street. And I do see Kings Island getting a modern launch coaster that is capable of being comparable, if not better, than Maverick on the Vortex block. Darien Lake will always be a part of home. It's nice to see the park fixing the neglect and improving the parts of the park before jumping into what I can only hope is tapping into that untapped potential I've been talking about for this park for years, and having it being next in the same chain as Canada's Wonderland as a sibling and a regional section of two parks you can bounce off of should help. I hope. But that again is still only part of the park's story. There's still one more video from this trip that wasn't made as a separate video, but it's going to be its own thing. That's my new home park of Worlds of Fun, which I went to way too many dang times and made so much good use of that gold pass. But that park doesn't need a recap of its days or vlog. It's going to get its full video in the future, much like I did Darien Lake the first time around. That's going to do it for this video. Have you gone on a coaster road trip over the summer? What parks did you hit and how were the rides? Have you gotten to any of these parks and what were your experiences at them? Leave that in the comments below. And as always, thank you all for watching, God bless, and we'll see you in the parks. We headed straight for Banshee.